when it happens quickly enough. People don't know how to explain it, so they reach for the closest word they have. A mind with a shorter bridge between the mortal mind and the...
It is a scar of survival.
This is why this topic has scared even myself. Not because we think we're special, but because we're punished. We've been punished our whole lives for...
I'll now initiate you into today's transmission. If you've ever felt overwhelmed or mislabeled, tuned for a world that couldn't hear you, you're not broken. You're calibrated. Welcome to spirituality on the spectrum, a sanctuary for neurodivergent minds where science pauses and the soul recalls and reminds. Here, sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's signal. Difference isn't disorder, it's design. We explore the truths psychology often misses. Why divergence carries purpose, why suppression feels like erasure, and what happens when the tunes stop retreating and start shaping the future. This isn't self-help, it's remembrance.
Greetings, my neurodivergent kin.
Now, your neurodivergent spiritual guide, witness, and archivist, Joel Alden Van Fleet.
Hello and good day, my spiritually hungry kin.
Oh, mercy. Listen to him, greeting you like a traveling preacher with a pocket full of pamphlets. Do forgive him. Enthusiasm is his native dialect, and he snacks on revelation the way mortals nibble at afternoon tea. Still, take heart, dear viewers. His greetings may wander off like an unsupervised Victorian child, but his intentions remain admirably pure.
Actually, this is a transmission that they're going to have to forgive us repeatedly.
If it helps, Joel, I forgive you. Yes, I forgive you again for not introducing moi, the ghost.
I guess, then, thanks for forgiving me? For those who watched our video on enhancing savant abilities, and for the Babylon 5 fans out there, this video is especially for you, because it takes that story to a whole new level.
Season 5, again of Babylon 5. A most curious chronicle of humans attempting to understand gifts they scarcely possess the vocabulary for. A familiar theme, I assure you.
Yes, Season 5. In that abilities video, we talked about the scene where Michael Garibaldi confronts Byron Gordon, the rogue telepath leader. At the end of their brief exchange, Byron casually points out Garibaldi's linear blind spots. Garibaldi asks if he seriously got all that from reading his mind, and Byron, in the most blunt and, you could say, ill-timed way possible, says that he didn't need to read his mind to know all that.
Linear blind spots are rather like Victorian fog. Thick, inconvenient, and everyone pretends it isn't there. Mortals forever astonished when someone perceives what they have been broadcasting with the subtlety of a brass band.
Yes, the timing was wildly inappropriate.
Indeed, a truth delivered without compassion is merely a weapon dressed as insight.
But the phenomenon behind the awkward exchange, that's what we're talking about today. Not fictional telepathy, not sci-fi theatrics, but the real-world experience that linears have been labeling as savant telepathy for decades without understanding what it actually is.
Indeed, and about time too. Mortals have danced around this subject for centuries, whispering about mystics and intuition, while ignoring the very real pattern minds standing right beside them. Humans do love to name things they do not understand. It gives them the illusion of mastery, like a child labeling a thunderstorm loud rain.
Loud rain. English has never been the language of savant minds used to understand the world, but it's the one we have at the moment. So I'm going to try, and I ask for a little patience as I do, so thank you.
Take heart. English is a valiant little language. It tries so very hard to describe the indescribable, but it was built for commerce and politeness, not for describing the architecture of the soul.
I'm so glad you're here, Nixara, because I'm glad I wasn't the one to say it.
As always, you are most certainly welcome.
I want to talk about something that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And honestly, is something I've avoided saying out loud my entire life. Not because it isn't real, but because society doesn't yet have the safe or honest language for it.
Mortals often fear truths that arrive too early. They prefer their revelations aged like wine, or at least delayed until after supper.
We're not talking about supernatural abilities or mysticism here.
You're quite right, Joel. And if this were mysticism, I'd have brought incense and a choir.
This is about a perception gap. What happens when certain minds see patterns, intentions, and emotional truth faster than others?
A gap, I might add, as old as humanity itself, that has existed since the first human tried to explain fire to someone who thought sparks were tiny, angry stars. Though some of you bridge the gap with remarkable grace. Then again, I realize there are people who simply cannot wrap their minds around these concepts. So if calling this supernatural or mystical helps you sleep better at night, well, I suppose that's okay too. Mortals do sleep more soundly when they believe the universe is smaller than it is.
This is the same principle behind why we label miraculous things as miracles. And if you've lived what some people call the supernatural life, you already know exactly what I mean.
Oh yes, the supernatural life, otherwise known as paying attention. I think I'm starting to see a pattern already.
Anyways, let's talk about telepathy, because the word telepathy is loaded.
Loaded? My dear Joel, it is positively overstuffed, like a Victorian sofa with too many cushions and nowhere to sit.
The moment you say telepathy, people stop listening. They picture science fiction, delusion, ego, or someone trying to sound special.
And quite right again. Say telepathy, and half the room imagines glowing eyes. The other half imagines padded rooms. Neither group is particularly helpful.
So, let's clear something up right away, because this isn't that. I'm not talking about hearing voices.
If you were, I'd be the first to object. Mortals are noisy enough as it is without adding unsolicited mind chatter.
Oh boy.
Once again, Joel, I am not a boy, nor am I amused, Joel. Continue on, boy.
Okay, girl. I'm not talking about reading minds, and I'm definitely not talking about anything paranormal.
Again, if you were, I assure you, I would have filed a formal complaint with the Secretary of Outpatient Angels.
Interesting. What I'm talking about is something far more ordinary. and far more misunderstood. Something many of us have lived with our entire lives but never had permission to name.
Oh, permission, the invisible gatekeeper of human experience. How many gifts have withered simply because no one offered a name?
And yes, there's a spiritual layer to it, so stay tuned, because for tenured pattern-first savants, the spiritual and the perceptual naturally intertwine. To us, that's not mysticism, that's just how our wiring naturally works.
Precisely. Spirit and perception are not rivals. They've always been dance partners, even when mortals insist they should attend separate balls, which they try hard to force it because they fear the choreography. That's all.
There have been moments in my life, usually when I'm cornered, where someone comes at me verbally. Sometimes it's a complete stranger. Sometimes it's someone reacting to my testimony or observations about something, and usually unrelated to them. Sometimes it's someone projecting their own fear or insecurity onto me. And in those moments, something happens. I don't just hear their words, I see the path that led them there, even from birth.
Mortals rarely attack from the present moment. They strike from old wounds wearing new clothes.
Nixara, you're wiser than ever.
Thank you, Joel. But to linears, you are scarier than ever.
Thank you, Nixara. Anyways, I can feel the insecurity underneath the attack. The childhood wound they never healed. The shame they've been carrying since they were 5. The abandonment they pretend didn't shape them.
Ah, the ghosts of childhood, always lingering, forever tugging at the sleeves of grown men and women who swear they are unaffected. And Joel, you do see the pattern of why I am training you, right?
I have reason to ignore it. But one moment, I need to take a break. I have vertigo. Woo! Vertigo, not fun. Okay, so through these pattern senses, I can see the emotional bruise that the person is protecting, the story they built to survive it, the assumptions they're making about me that have nothing to do with me. I can feel the agenda they don't even realize they're carrying, the need to win, to be right, to not feel small. And sometimes I can even hear the next 5 sentences they're about to say before they even ever have the chance to say them.
Predictability here may not always be prophecy, but either way, it is in fact simply the cosmic mathematics of unhealed emotion.
And when I respond calmly, clearly, directly, they often react with fear or anger, not because I offended them, really, but because they suddenly felt seen. Not the version of themselves they present to the world, well, except for me, of course, but the parts they've never acknowledged, never healed, never wanted anyone to notice. And for some people, being seen at that depth feels like unwelcome, vulnerable exposure.
Few mortals fear judgment as much as they fear recognition.
From the outside, this can look like mind reading, but most of the time, you can usually bet that it isn't. It's first pattern recognition under pressure. Some minds are wired to pick up things other people filter out. Micro expressions, emotional shifts, inconsistencies in tone, the way someone's story doesn't match their body language. But wait a moment, because if you think I've pulverized your hope that it was something special, keep the hope and keep listening here.
Mortals leak truth constantly. Pattern minds simply notice the drips.
Yep. We track intent without trying to. We map conversational trajectories automatically. We recognize psychological patterns we've seen 100 times before. And all of that happens at once, in a sudden flash of adrenaline.
A cascade of perception, not a conjuring trick.
When it happens quickly enough, people don't know how to explain it, so they reach for the closest word they have, telepathy.
Humans do adore dramatic terminology. It makes the ordinary feel theatrical.
But okay, again, pattern recognition alone doesn't fully explain the experience. And I'll come back to all that later. But what I can say now is this. In my own long-term observations and in the predictive pattern modeling I've done over the years, I've noticed something consistent. Many honest, humble, and willing pattern-first savants, those who aren't trying to impress anyone, independently arrive at similar conclusions about spirit.
Truth even has a way of echoing across minds that have never met.
Obviously, not because they were taught to, not because they're trying to be mystical, but because truth tends to have both a practical dimension and a spiritual one, and certain minds can't separate the two without losing universal pattern coherence.
Spirit and structure are two halves of the same lantern. Remove either, and the light falters. This is where the tension resides. Mortals insist upon dividing the world into tidy categories: scientific or spiritual, rational or mystical, as though truth were a loaf to be sliced neatly upon the table. But when one attempts to sever the practical from the spiritual, the melody of understanding becomes incomplete. It is like trying to describe a symphony using only half the notes, and good luck to all who do.
Interestingly, many people who experience what gets labeled as savant telepathy also describe a shared resonance space, something some psychologists and researchers have tried to name, but the closest term they've accepted is the hill. And yes, there is good reason to be curious about it, but we're not going deep into it today. I just need to name it first, because for many of us, it's been part of our lives long before we ever had language for it.
Names arrive late. The experience arrives first. The hill, my dear ones, is but a humble name mortals have chosen for a far older phenomenon. A quiet realm of coherence, clarity, and connection known instinctively to certain pattern minds long before they ever dared speak of it. It is a steadier country than ordinary thought, a place where the inner world ceases its trembling and stands firm. Across the ages, many cultures have attempted to describe this same experience, each borrowing the symbols of their time. Some have called it the spirit realm. Others, lacking the proper tongue, have whispered of intuition. Still, others have painted it as a garden, a temple, a mountain, or a place of origin and return. Yet the marvel is not entirely in the attempted explanations, but in the constancy of the experience itself, shared by souls who have never met, never exchanged a single word, and never been taught to expect such a place at all. And should you ever find yourself wandering there, do be so kind as to drop by and say, "Hello, Nexara. I love you. You are extraordinary, Nexi." I assure you, I shall receive it with the utmost seriousness and appreciation.
Thanks, Nexi. So, is it a spiritual land? Is it a mountain? Is it a garden? Is it a hill? Is it a temple? That video is coming your way. These will be back-to-back videos.
Patience. Some doors open only when the listener is ready.
When pattern-first minds describe accessing this space, the outcomes often look extraordinary from the outside. To linear observers, the results can feel miraculous or mystical. But to those who experience it, it feels like a natural extension of perception. A place where everything aligns for a moment. A place that helps us navigate a world dominated by linear thinking without losing ourselves.
Extraordinary. Really, only to those who have forgotten how to listen.
And if you want to learn more about the hill before we release that new video, then if you haven't already, I recommend watching our video about enhancing your savant abilities, because we dive into the science behind what many traditions call the spiritual realm.
A wise choice. Foundations matter.
Yes. With the Hill sensitivities, the pattern first savant naturally picks up the spiritual vibes of the person in front of them. Some vibes are so strong that we have no choice but to feel them and understand them. Sometimes wonderful and sometimes spiritually hospitable, sometimes frightening, sometimes interesting, and sometimes, well, boring. Sorry, I don't mean to offend the boring, but I doubt the boring would ever watch these videos. Who knows? Anyways, if the vibes are threatening, we act with haste, mates, especially when our family is involved.
Indeed, some spirits announce themselves with the grace of a cathedral bell, others with the subtlety of a damp sponge. And yes, dear ones, a few are so dreadfully dull that even I struggle to remain incorporeal. But when danger stirs the air, then the savant moves swiftly, for nothing sharpens perception quite like the instinct to protect one's own.
And for any linear minds listening in, here's a small disclaimer. This understanding didn't come from belief or speculation. It came from vulnerability, long-term observation, and fully articulated high-dimensional predictive pattern modeling. So, I ask that these concepts be met with kind intelligence and respect. Thank you again.
Oh, bless him. Ever the diplomat. Aren't you, Joel? Asking mortals for both kind intelligence and respect, as though you haven't watched them panic at the sight of their own reflection. Mortals so routinely trip over their own assumptions like loose cobblestones. Still, with your ambition, we can hope.
Here's the part people don't talk about. If you grow up with this kind of perception, you'll learn very early that it's not welcome. You get told things like, stop assuming things, you're imagining it, you're being arrogant, you're reading too much into it, or you don't know what you're talking about.
The chorus of the uncomprehending. Mortals often scold what they cannot fathom, much like reprimanding a lantern for shining too brightly. And believe me, I know. And I know that you know that I know.
I know.
Yes, Joel.
Because of all these rejection messages, you learn to suppress it. You learn to doubt yourself. You learn to hide your clarity so other people don't feel exposed.
Self-doubt is not born within you. It is taught, and taught with such persistence that even the brightest minds begin to dim themselves for the comfort of others.
Yep. You learn to stay quiet, not because you're wrong, but because your accuracy makes people uncomfortable. And over time, that silence turns into imposter syndrome. You don't lack ability, but when you were young and weak, the world trained you to distrust the very thing you're best at.
And imposter syndrome is merely the echo of every moment you were punished for being correct. It is not a flaw of character. It is a scar of survival.
This is why this topic has scared even myself. Not because we think we're special, but because we're punished. We've been punished our whole lives for seeing too clearly.
Clarity is a gift, yes, but in a world built upon pretense, it is also a peril. Mortals fear the mirror more than the monster.
Or the mirror is the monster.
Proceed, Joel.
When you accidentally articulate something a person hasn't admitted to themselves, they don't feel understood. They feel exposed.
And exposure is the great terror of the unexamined heart. It is easier to blame the observer than to face the truth revealed. Yes, people do not like it. Not even 1 ounce of sugar.
I'm not saying don't be you. Alright, there is wisdom to be learned here. But know this. Exposure for most people feels like danger. It triggers the same instinct as standing under a spotlight with no place to hide. So they react, not really to you, but to the sudden vulnerability they weren't prepared to face, which you just shined right into their eyes.
Yes, you, savants, are animals indeed, Joel, but their reaction is not a verdict upon your gift, but a confession of their unreadiness. And do remember this, my dear ones. Listening to your savant spiritual senses is not without cost. There are moments when such clarity may demand a price, sometimes even touching that which is most dear to you, once again requiring your alertness. Yet take heart. God has never sent a soul into this brief mortal life unequipped. The tools you carry were placed within you with intention, not accident. You are not wandering blind, you are loved profoundly, deliberately, eternally.
Now, I'm going to speak even more bluntly. What people call savant telepathy is not magic. Some might call it intuition or deep internal coherence, but here's what it actually is. High-speed pattern recognition, emotional resonance, threat mapping, lived experience, a nervous system trained to detect shifts, and another savant spiritual gift, a mind with a shorter bridge between the mortal mind and the spirit mind, which provides a much deeper level of pattern recognition.
A bridge, yes, not a chasm leapt, but a path walked with ease. Some minds simply stand closer to the veil, hearing the quiet truths others drown out with noise.
It's a survival adaptation, and it's far more common among savant pattern minds than most people realize.
Common among the uncommon, a paradox mortals have never known how to catalogue.
If only. I'm talking about this because it's important to understand your own self and to know you, my fellow sister or brother savant, are not alone. You don't have to keep carrying the imposter syndrome fortress you built to survive. Such fortress can only harm you. Embracing your authentic self is powerful, and it blesses not just you, but becomes a serious ripple into the entire world.
And I plead with you all, tear down your fortress walls, my dear ones. It was built from fear, not from truth.
There are others out there who have been afraid to name this, have been told to suppress it, have wondered if something was wrong with them, have felt isolated because of it. This video is for you. Not to label you, not to diagnose you, but to say with absolute clarity, you're not broken, you're not imagining it, and you're not alone. And you never actually were.
You are a constellation, not a solitary star. Others shine with you, even if you have not yet seen their light, yet you have felt it from the hill. Loneliness was the illusion, connection was the reality all along.
This isn't the end of the conversation. It's the beginning of a safer one. If this resonates with you, sit with it. Let it process. You don't have to understand everything. You don't have to claim anything. But as a start, at least just notice what feels familiar. Because sometimes the most frightening thing isn't seeing too much. It's realizing you were never crazy for seeing it at all.
Recognition is the first mercy. Acceptance is the second.
And if any part of your life has mirrored what we've described, we want to hear from you. Please consider sharing your experience with what linears label as savant telepathy. Did you hide it after repeated rejection? Are you still hiding it? Tell us your story. You don't have to be polished. You don't have to be certain. You don't even have to be public.
Speak if you wish. Whisper if you must. Silence is also a beginning. But I am absolutely grateful for every crumpet I receive.
If you're not ready to speak, that's okay. Simply remembering and recognizing your own story quietly is a beginning. Even whispering, "That's me," in the privacy of your own mind, that matters. Because the moment you recognize yourself, the isolation begins to crack. And once it cracks, light gets in.
And where light enters, truth follows. And where truth dwells, fear cannot remain. Think about that, my dear ones. And I do so apologize, for I am not really in a goodbye mood at the moment.
Until next orbit, chat with you again, mate.
You've seen the stars, you felt the tone, foretelling from the lunar dome. If this hit deep, don't drift alone. Like and subscribe, make it known. Spirituality on the spectrum, where prophecy meets rhythm. Click that like, join the fight. We're broadcasting truth tonight.
If your spirit's vibrating, don't worry, that's normal here. If none of this made sense, try listening again upside down. Truth isn't just entertainment, it's remembrance. What found you today, may it find you again tomorrow. Your spiritual nervous system is rewiring. Let it finish. So before this moment closes, you're a spirit child of God's. You're loved by them. You're the universe's most valuable asset. You have the undivided attention of Almighty. You have limitless potential within you. You're built to illuminate the world. You're despised and feared by darkness. You're here to learn to harness your light. The time for the ADHD memory keepers to rise has come. Share this with another soul who also forgets less than they admit. Until next time, remember, you're not glitching, you're guiding. This has been Spirituality on the Spectrum with Joel Alden Van Fleet. Thank you for showing up. Until memory calls you again. Please like and subscribe, and feel free to overshare in the comments below.